Recording in progress.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaihevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everyone to our ongoing study of Kapila Siksha. This evening we're going to look at chapter 26. Chapter 26 is entitled Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. So, isn't that a beautiful picture on the cover of our Srimad Bhagavatam?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes, Maharaj.
You want to know about creation? You can find out everything just by looking at the cover of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Just from the cover alone, you can know about creation, about the spiritual world and the material world. And so, okay. So, glorification. Yeah. All right. So more questions by Devahuti. Devahuti had asked, what is the gyan by which one understands tattvas? That was asked in verse 29 of chapter 25. And it's answered in this chapter, 26, as well as in the next chapter, 27. And then another question, what is the yoga mentioned by you, which is aimed at the Lord for liberation? How many limbs does it have? And that is answered in chapter 28. So you can see Devahuti's questions take up chapters 26, 27, 28. The Lord glorifies Sankhya. After hearing, Sri Maitreya said, after hearing the statement of his mother, Kapila could understand her purpose, and he became compassionate towards her because of being born of her body. He described the Sankhya system of philosophy, which is a combination of devotional service and mystic realization, as received by disciplic succession. So this is how Srila Prabhupada describes, or this is how Maitreya describes Sankhya philosophy. And we spoke about how devotional service is greater than mukti. Lord Kapila said the senses are symbolic representations of the demigods, and their natural inclination is to work under the direction of the Vedic injunctions. As the senses are representatives of the demigods, so the mind is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind's natural duty is to serve. From text 32 of chapter 25. Then we ask, list reasons explaining how bhakti is superior to yoga and mukti. And you can get the answers from text 32, 33, 34, 36, and 41. And then the chapter finishes. Lord Kapila prescribes Tivrena Bhakti, Tivra Bhakti, right? Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, Mano Maya Arpitam Stiram. Therefore, persons whose minds are fixed on the Lord engage in the intensive practice of devotional service. That is the only means for attainment of the final perfection of life. And Prabhupada's purport, first of all, the mind should be engaged at the lotus feet of the Lord, very steadily and naturally, because the mind is a master of the senses. When the mind is engaged, all the senses become engaged. That is Bhakti Yoga. That's the purport of text 44, which was the last purport of the chapter 25. The importance of the mind, the master of the sense, and the mind must be engaged. Then all the senses become engaged. And this is the principle of Bhakti Yoga. And how to engage the mind? It should be engaged at the lotus feet of the Lord, very steadily and naturally. How to engage the mind at the lotus feet of the Lord? Well, take up some humble service. Okay, going ahead, connection with the previous chapter. Being requested by his mother, Lord Kapila first described Bhakti Yoga, which is the heart of Sankhya. Now, in this chapter 26, he will equip us with the acts of knowledge by which we can cut material attachments and then practice pure devotional service. Are you all ready to cut the act? To use the axe to cut our material attachments?
Yes, Maharaj.
Oh, yes, Maharaj. No, you all say yes, I know. Let's see. Okay. Don't blame me. Connection with previous... In chapter 26, Kapila will discuss about Gyan, Sankhya, the manifestation and characteristics of the elements, such as Mahatattva, the universal form composed of those elements, and thus being brought to life by the entrance of the Lord. So this is the subject matter of chapter 26, in answer to question 3. All right, here's an overview. First of all, first 8 verses, liberation by understanding the different categories of the absolute truth. Liberation. by understanding the categories of the Absolute Truth. Just like we know Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, the different categories of the Absolute Truth. And then the chapter goes on, 9 to 18 will describe the 24 elements and the time factor. And then verses 19 to 30, well, the 24 elements, remember, we heard from the Bhagavad Gita, so nothing new there. We're going to hear about their different characteristics, more details than in Bhagavad Gita. And then 19 to 30, the manifestation of the subtle elements from the Mahatattva. The subtle elements being mind, intelligence, false ego, how they manifest from the Mahatattva, and then the evolution of the gross elements from ether to earth. We notice that creation, of course, comes about from subtle to gross. Sometimes people have it, they think it's the other way around. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's very clear that the creation is from subtle to gross. The Christian Bible, Srila Prabhupada heard a quote from the Christian Bible. In the Christian Bible it said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, like that. But in the beginning was the Word. And when Prabhupada heard that, he said, yes. He said, that is our philosophy. He said, we agree with this from Srimad Bhagavatam. Creation comes about from subtle to gross. So the subtlest element is ether. And with ether, you have the ethereal element, which is the ear. With ether, there is sound. Sound is there in ether. There's nothing else. There's no air, there's no fire, there's no water, there's no earth. Within ether, there is sound. There's none of the other sense objects. There's no taste, there's no smell, there's no touch, there's no form. But there is sound. So that's the beginning of the creation. So Lord Kapila describes also the evolution of the gross elements. And then, at the end of the chapter, from text 50 up to the end, text 72, Lord Kapila describes the universal coverings and the universal form, and how the Lord has to enter into the universal form to awaken it. All right, so benefits of hearing Sankhya, the first verse. The personality of Godhead Kapila continued, my dear mother, now I shall describe unto you the different categories of the Absolute Truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of the modes of material nature. That is liberation. When you get released from the modes of material nature, then you are a liberated soul. So Lord Kapila is describing to his mother how she can become a liberated soul by understanding the different categories of the Absolute Truth. The benefits of hearing Sankhya. I will describe the different features of the material elements, knowing which, and here we have 1, 2, 3 points, which are all the benefits of hearing Sankhya. So first one, knowing which one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature. From the material modes. So that is, I said, liberation, to get free from the modes of material nature. Even goodness, we want to be freed from the mode of goodness. We want to come to the level of Shuddha Sattva, pure goodness. Then second benefit, knowing which one attains perfection of self-realization. Self-realization and Krishna consciousness are non-different. If one is actually self-realized, then he will know that he is a servant of Krishna and he will engage in the service of the Lord. And then the third point, knowing which one cuts the knot of attachment to the material world. So that's what we're all interested in, right? We want to cut that attachment to the material world. We're all eager for that, to get free from the material world. Oh, wonderful, liberation, here we come. Okay, so we have to understand how to practice this Sankhya Yoga. All right, so we'll go ahead here. Lord Kapila describes about the characteristics of Purusha. Purusha actually means the Supreme Lord. But anybody who thinks they're the Supreme Lord, then they're also Purush. Often living entities think they are the Supreme Enjoyer, the Supreme Person. So text number 3 describes the characteristics of the Purusha. That first of all, anadi, without a beginning. The soul never takes birth and never dies, right? For the soul, there's no birth and no death. So anadi is unborn. And then Atma, the Supreme Soul. Nirguna, transcendental to the material modes of nature. Prakriti para, beyond this material world. Pratyak dhamma, perceivable everywhere. Swayam jyoti, self-effulgent. Vishvam yena samanvavitam, by whom the entire creation is maintained. So that's some interesting points here, which, you know, we want to be the Purusha. We'll find it very difficult to be, to maintain the entire creation and perceivable everywhere, the all-pervading nature, these kind of things, very difficult. No ordinary living entity can do that. The actual Purusha is the Supreme Lord. He has all of these different qualities. Texts 5 to 7 describe the Jiva Prakriti interactions. All right, so characteristics of Pradhan. Pradhan, the unmanifested stage of the material nature, right? So described here. Trigunam, combination of the three modes. Avyaktam, unmanifested. Nityam, eternal. Sadasat atmakam, consisting of cause and effect. Prakritim prakriti, prahu, they call. Avishesham, undifferentiated. Visheshavat, possessing differentiation. So possessing differentiation, but at the same time undifferentiated. Difficult for us to understand. What is the effect? What is this? That it is possessing differentiation, but at the same time is undifferentiated. This is the special nature, pradhan. The unmanifested stage of the material nature. Go ahead. And then the 24 elements are described. Of course, you know this from Bhagavad Gita. 5 gross elements, 5 tanmatra, 10 senses, 10 knowledge acquiring, 5 knowledge acquiring, 5 working senses, 4 internal senses, including the chitta or consciousness, prakritim, prakriti, prahu. They call avishesham, undifferentiated, visheshavat, possessing differentiation. So again we have this, that it's undifferentiated, but it possesses differentiation. This is a special nature.
Maharaj, there is a hand raised for question.
Okay, let's have some questions.
Ashish Prabhu, please go on.
Dandavat pranams, Maharaj. Maharaj, on the previous, this slide, the pradhan is eternal. This is part of material creation. So, does this always stay, the unmanifested part?
Yes, the material creation, material, you see, sometimes it's manifest, sometimes it's not, but it's eternal. Just like, you know, material nature, earth, water, fire, air, ether. These different elements are eternal. Sometimes they're manifest, sometimes they're not, but they're eternal.
So where does it stay? In the Mahavishnu?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj. Dandavat.
Vikanashini Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Maharaj, my question is, what is this mystic realization, Maharaj?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been trying to work this out myself. What exactly is this mystic realization? It could mean many things. Prabhupada doesn't actually define it for us, what he means when he talks about mystic realization. He often uses this kind of term, mystic realization, mystic yoga, and so on. You know, you're just left to try to figure out what he means. I really haven't. It could be mystic. Well, it could be simply understanding that we're not the master, that we're the servant. It could be that kind of realization, understanding ourselves as simply the tiny part of the Supreme Lord, having a relationship with the Lord as a part and parcel, the master and the servant. But I haven't found any clear place where Prabhupada actually tells us what he means when he's talking about mystic realization.
Yes, Maharaj. And realization, but this word mystic making me little doubt. That's the reason I asked.
Yes, right. Mystic. Well, mystical meaning not of this world, right?
Spiritual world.
Not easily understood. Something mystical, some mystic powers. Then, you know, they have powers beyond the normal person. It's like some kind of magic power, special ability. So mystical realization, mystic realization, what exactly Prabhupada is indicating, I'm still thinking about it. It's not so cut and dry. But if you have any ideas on it, I'd like to hear. You know.
Maharaj, actually, I heard in one of the lecture that like a human being, also like we don't utilize our capability to the extent what is Lord is given. We, like a normal person, use 1% or 2% of the intelligence or knowledge or whatever potencies Lord has given us, and more most intelligent person, he uses maximum 5%. So 95% of the thing is hidden. Is that correct, Maharaj? Just I want to wait from you.
Well, certainly we're not using our full potential. I don't know about the 95%, but it's certainly true that we don't utilize our full capabilities. That is a fact. That is well known. Exactly what percentage we utilize, I'm not sure of that.
Yeah. Basically, that is internal potency, means Lord doesn't reveal everything to the individual. Like that, that is the message Prabhu was telling.
Well, yes, certainly, according to our qualification, He will reveal. All right? Everything depends on how much we've surrendered, how much we're qualified to receive that knowledge. He can reveal to us.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yeah.
So it's going to vary from individual. Okay, we'll go ahead here. Here's a quote from Bhagavad Gita. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. Where is this verse found? In Bhagavad Gita, which chapter, which verse?
It's written there, Maharaj, 24, 1324.
1324, is it?
Yes.
Chapter 13.
Yes, Maharaj, it is written there.
Okay, I'm not able to see it. Somehow I got some blocking. Yeah. Okay. So, this philosophy about the material nature, of course that was the subject matter of the 13th chapter, material nature, Prakriti and Purusha. So, the living material nature, the living entity and the interaction of the modes of nature, we understand it, we're sure to get liberation. This is the benefit, like the benefit of Sankhya, right? He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. And so, the Bhagavad Gita is saying the same thing, what is confirmed here in Srimad Bhagavatam. All right, and this is from the purport, chapter 13, text 35. Would somebody like to read this for me?
Maharaj, there is a reading order that is followed in this group, so they'll read according to the reading order.
Chitta Hari Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Maharaj. This material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and the 24 material elements. One who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as this combination of the soul and material elements, and can also see the situation of the Supreme Soul, becomes eligible for transfer to the spiritual world. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master. Bhagavad Gita 13.35 purport.
Thank you, Prabhu. All right, so the conjunction of the soul and the 24 material elements. Of course, we have a lot of atheistic people in the world. Just earlier tonight, somebody was telling me that their relative didn't believe in the soul. And they said it's just all our own sentiments, and that we're blinded by the religious faith. And her atheistic relative was telling her there's no soul, and when we die, then everything is finished. So you get these kind of people. So Prabhupada says if we can see that the whole material manifestation is a combination of the soul and material elements, and then also the situation of the Supreme Soul. So that's a big thing, understanding material elements is okay, and the soul, but then the situation of the Supreme Soul, that's a big jump up, to put everything into position, to see that there's a Supreme Soul over everything. And that's what's necessary to go to the spiritual world. So we have to understand behind everything there is the Supreme Lord. That's important. To get people to believe in God these days, it's not very common. People are so atheistic. Okay, so we have it's a big chapter, there's a lot of points, and we're going to share up the different topics of the chapter into groups. Right, how many people do we have in the class today?
26, Maharaj.
How many?
26.
Oh, 26. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. So,
Okay, Maharaj. I'll make 4 groups.
All right, so then group 1, we'll look at verses 10 to 18. And we want you to tell us clearly what is Pradhan and Prakriti. Explain it. And then the 25 elements, well, that's not difficult. We already looked at that. Then we want you to differentiate Nirguna Brahman from Saguna Brahman. We hope you can come up with some scriptural evidence from this to explain to us clearly what is Nirguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman and how to apply it. That's group 1. And then group 2 will define the Mahatattva, and you have to explain these different terms because you'll be looking at the different elements, the subtle elements. So consciousness, false ego, mind, intelligence, and their presiding deities. So we want to hear about the presiding deities for each of these subtle elements, as well as the Mahatattva. Then group 3, dealing with text 31 to 49, summarize the transformations of the gross elements from ether to earth, along with their specific qualities. Again, that's a quick exercise for you, not very difficult. You've covered a lot about creation before, so it should be very easy for you to do that one. And then the final group, looking at text 50 to 71, we want to hear about the universal coverings. Can you explain them to us? And describe the Virata Rup, drawing practical lessons from it. So that will be a little interesting for us to hear about the Virata Rup and what we can learn from it.
Maharaj, time limit?
Sorry?
How many minutes?
Well, I would think they'll need at least 10 minutes.
Okay, Maharaj. Kindly join the rooms.
Recording stopped.
Bhakti Priya Mataji, Chittakari Prabhu, Dayanidhi Prabhu, Radheshyam Prabhu, Sankarshan Prabhu, Sarda Korini Mataji, please join the rooms.
Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Bhakti Priya Mataji and Sankarshan Prabhu, could you please join the rooms? LP, Bhakti Priya Mataji, please join the room. Maharaj, I'll go into the rooms, check and I'll come back. Maharaj, they feel that 10 minutes is too short a time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we have to extend then.
Another 5 more minutes?
Yeah.
Can I take it as 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, 5 minutes is gone, so I'll tell them 10 minutes is left.
All right, thank you.
Sankarshan Prabhu, please join the room. Which room you were in? You are out now. Sankarshan Chaitanya Prabhu, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, Mataji, sorry, I'm driving, so I'm unable, and internet is on and off, so I'm unable to continue in the class. But whenever internet picks up, that time only I'm connecting. So let me be here, because I don't know which group and what is going to be discussed. So let me be listeners today, please.
Okay, Prabhu.
Thanks, Mataji.
Maharaj, I'm closing all the rooms. They'll join in a minute. As soon as everybody joins, I'll start the recording.
Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Hare Krishna. So, who's the spokesman for group number 1?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandapranam. Sanatan Guru. Actually, we had group 1 mainly about the defining Pradhana and Prakriti, and about 25 elements and Nirguna and Saguna. So we have 3 devotees representing that. I request Girirani Mataji to say about Pradhana and Prakriti.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. In the verse number 10, 26th chapter, verse number 10, Pradhana has been explained.
Girirani Mataji, could you please be louder?
Yes, Mataji. Pradhana has been explained in the verse number 10. Pradhana characteristic has been mentioned as it's a subtle stage. It's undifferentiated sum total of all material elements. When the cause and effect are not clearly manifested, avyakta, it's called pradhana, and the reaction of the total elements does not take place in pradhana, and pradhana is not the time, pradhana is not jiva or marginal potency of living entities, and condition of the material nature immediately previous to its manifestation is called pradhana. It's been mentioned in the 10th sloka, and prakriti is total material elements are manifested by the interaction of the 3 modes. It's called Prakriti. This has been mentioned about the verse number 10 and 11.
So can you give us
also few characteristics? It's like eternal, Nityam and Trigunam, aggregate of 3 modes. And also Sat, Asat, Atmakum, as Maharaj explained, it consists of cause and effect. And Vishesham, Visheshavat. Undifferentiated, it has variety.
Yeah. So how do you distinguish Pradhana and Prakriti?
Pradhana is unmanifested, and when it is manifested, it's called Prakriti, Maharaj.
What about the living entities also being Prakriti?
Prakriti, living entities comes under Prakriti.
Okay, so is Prakriti can be subdivided? Because there's material elements and there's the living entities. There's a difference, right? There's different kinds of Prakriti.
I'm not sure, Maharaj.
Well, you've studied this before. In the Ishopanishad it's mentioned. There's the yeah, para and apara prakriti. Yes, right. So para prakriti is the superior prakriti, and apara, the material elements, the living entities, para prakriti, superior prakriti, because it's superior to matter, because it has consciousness, right? But still we're Prakriti. Living entities are all Prakriti. And Krishna describes like that, aparinamitastvanyam prakritim vidime param. Besides this material nature of mine, O Arjuna, there's a superior energy, which are all living entities. So there's a superior Prakriti. Of course, not mentioned in the section, of which you were studying. It wasn't mentioned there, but it was studied earlier in the Bhakti Shastri. Okay.
So the second point was to describe 25 elements, and in the 11th sloka, 11th verse, it is given that pradhana is divided into different elements, mainly the 5 gross elements, the 5 subtle elements, 4 internal senses, 5 senses for gathering knowledge, and 5 outward organs. Punyashri Mataji, can you explain few more?
Yes, Hare Krishna. Maharaj, this in 14 verse, they have explained here that subtle senses, there are 4 types: mind, intelligence, ego, and consciousness, chit, like we saw just now in the slide also, contaminated consciousness. And these are differentiated. I mean, they have distinctions, they are different by functions, different by characteristics. So here in this verse 14, they have explained the false ego, about false ego, that when a pure consciousness, it is contaminated, polluted actually by material contamination, or it identifies with the body, then this it is said it is situated in false ego or ahankara. That's what have been explained in this 14 verse, Maharaj.
Okay, yes. There's nothing much there.
Yes, I think in second group it is in detailed description about this consciousness, false ego, mind.
Okay, yes.
And the third point, Maharaj, it was about Nirguna and Saguna.
Yes.
Dhyana Sundar Prabhu, can
Harish Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. Maharaj, in Sloka 15, it's mentioned that when Brahman is mixed with Trigunas, it's sometimes called as Saguna Brahman. It consists of all the 25 elements, including the time element, the Kala. And when in the spiritual world, it's Nirguna Brahman. There is no material contamination. That means the Trigunas are not present. So there only, where Nirguna Brahman is there, it's simple, unalloyed goodness.
In the spiritual world, there's Nirguna Brahman.
Yes, Maharaj, it's mentioned in the purport that where Nirguna Brahman is found, simple, unalloyed goodness prevails.
And where is the Saguna Brahman?
Saguna Brahman is in the material world when Nirguna Brahman is mixed with these material modes.
Oh. So, can you give me some examples of Saguna, what's Saguna Brahman and what's Nirguna? You said the spiritual world is Nirguna and the whole material world is Saguna Brahman?
Yes, Maharaj. I just quoted one of the one line in the purport stating that in the Nirguna Brahman where there is no material contamination, or in the spiritual world, the 3 modes, goodness, passion and ignorance, are not present.
What about the Saguna Brahman then? Everything in the material world is Saguna Brahman?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Maharaj. In the purport it is said that Saguna Brahman is described as means consisting of 25 elements, including the time factor, past, present.
25 elements, including the time factor. Okay. So what about the deities? How do you view the deity in our temples? Are they Saguna Brahman or Nirguna Brahman?
My understanding is that they are Nirguna.
Nirguna.
They are not contaminated.
You see the deity as being Nirguna Brahman. So we have also the deity. We have also Nirguna Brahman in this world, right? If the deity is Nirguna Brahman. So it's also there.
Yes.
So could we extend that and say that all the different Lord's paraphernalia are all Nirguna Brahman?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes.
Mridanga, kartals?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
And again, Saguna Brahman is the 25 elements mixed with the element of time. Was it?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, does anybody else want to ask any questions to group 1? Any of the other devotees have any queries?
How can the Brahman word is for the spirit? No. So how can it be material elements be described as Nirguna Brahman?
Well, the material elements are not described as Nirguna Brahman, they're described as Saguna Brahman.
Yes, Sadguna Brahman. Saguna Brahman.
So how can the material elements be considered Brahman, even though they're with material qualities? Would you like to explain? Someone from group 1, can you answer?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, may I, Maharaj, Hare Krishna Maharaj, may I?
Yes, please do.
Maharaj?
Yes?
Actually, all material things, they are saguna, but when they are used for in the service of the Lord, like all the paraphernalia and this, then it comes to that stage, nirguna, Maharaj. If maybe I'm wrong, Maharaj, please correct me.
Well, her question is, how is it you have in the 25 material elements can be Brahman, Saguna Brahman. How is it they're Brahman? They're in the material world. So how does Brahman come into the material world?
Harish Maharaj, can I try to explain, Maharaj?
Yes?
Maharaj, it's told in the Chandogya Upanishad that Sarvam Khalidam Brahma, everything is Brahman. And in the Vishnu Purana is mentioned that Parasya Brahmana Shakti. That's everything is an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Absolute Truth. That's Brahman. That is, everything is an expansion of Brahman.
Yes.
So,
yes, right, good. Everything comes from Krishna, right?
yes, Maharaj.
And the living entities, we're all Brahman, right? The living entities, although we're here in this material world, we're also Brahman.
Yes, living entities are Brahman, we could understand, but the Prakriti, that...
well, the Prakriti is also Krishna's energy. It's also the energy of the Lord. So it's also Brahman. But it's it's in the material world. It's Saguna Brahman. It's certainly Krishna's energy. We know that, right? Bina Prakritir Ashtada, it's a separated energy. But where does it all come from? It comes from the Brahman. The whole material creation comes from the Brahman. The whole material cosmic manifestation is all coming from Mahavishnu, right? At the time of creation, it's all in the body of Mahavishnu, comes in, Mahavishnu breathes out and the universes come out from his body. All the different elements are there in the form of pradhan, and then it becomes prakriti, like that.
The word Brahman can be used for anything, like, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, that Brahman, it is Parabrahman. So here this Brahman is the Prakriti. So it can be used in different ways. The word Brahman can be used, like Atma can be used as mind, consciousness. Even sometimes Atma word is used for body. So I think this Brahman word is also used in different...
Yes, we're not talking about the Supreme Brahman, we're just simply talking about the Brahman is the energy of the Lord, spiritual...
Okay, so now the living entities are Nirguna Brahman.
The living entities are Nirguna Brahman, initially, yeah, right, there are, but we come into the material world, right? We become influenced by the material nature. We become
Saguna, or we always remain as Nirguna.
Well, we become covered. We do become covered. The living entity, it's conditioned souls, right? We become covered by the material nature. Spirit soul is always pure, but it becomes covered, just like the sun becomes covered by the clouds. You know, the sun is always pure, but sometimes we see the sun being covered by clouds. So the same way the soul is covered by the material energy, but the soul itself is always pure.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
So Saguna Brahman, we said the definition was the 25 elements of the material creation, right? Influenced by the time factor. Doesn't mention about the living entities becoming Saguna Brahman. But we do become conditioned because of our identification with the material energy. Any more comments or questions about this? It's a complex subject, Nirguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman. Certainly, the deity would be Nirguna Brahman, but we may consider it before the installation that it's Saguna Brahman. But then at the time of the installation, we invite the Lord to appear into the elements and becomes Nirguna Brahman. And with the installation, the deity installation, the Lord enters into the deity. Yes? Everyone's very quiet. Is it all right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's go on.
Maharaj, conditioned souls are sagunas and who are already elevated. I mean, who are above the modes of, or who are muktas. Those are nirgunas, correct, Maharaj?
It's not so clear, Prabhu. Could you say it again?
All conditioned souls are sagunas.
Yeah.
And who are elevated from the modes, muktas. Those are nirgunas, correct, Maharaj?
Yes, right.
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead. Group number 2, define Mahatattva.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Prabhuji, you will represent Prabhu?
Maharaj, we studied in a set of slokas, Maharaj. The first will be led by Nityaswama Prabhu.
Maharaj, here it is mentioned about the Mahatattva. Actually, Mahatattva is basically a breeding source of all varieties of living entities. And also the living entities belongs to the spiritual nature. And no material scientific advancement can produce life. The living force comes from the spiritual world and has nothing to do with the interaction of the material elements. That is a conclusion in text 19. And text 20 talks about when the Mahatattva was created, it is manifested the material ego and swallowed up by darkness, which covers the cosmic manifestation at the time of dissolution. And the example is given like when a person goes to sleeping mode, he will be inactive, and when the sun rises again, he will be activated. And in the text 21 talks about Vishnu is alone without the accompaniment of his internal energy, he is Vasudeva. When he is accompanied by his internal potency, he is called Dwarkadesha. So here, in order to release from false ego, we need to worship Sankarshana, in order to free from mental disturbance, we need to worship Aniruddha, and in order to fix in our intelligence, we need to worship Pradyumna. These are some of the points in these three texts, Maharaj. Thank you.
I haven't got it, what you're talking about, Mahatattva. You have to make it clear to me. Where does it come in the creation?
Where does it come in creation?
How did it come about? What is it? It's not clear to me.
After the Supreme Personality of Godhead impregnates material nature with his internal potency, then material nature delivers some cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiranmaya. This takes place in material nature when she is agitated by the destination of the condition. That is there in the translation, Maharaj.
Where's the Mahatattva? You didn't tell me anything about Mahatattva.
Mm-hmm. Where is Mahatattva? That is the question, Maharaj. Where is Mahatattva?
Yes. I mean, you spoke a sentence, but there was no mention of the Mahatattva. I was just trying to relate it.
Yeah, Mahatattva is actually material this thing, and when Lord glances over Mahatattva, then the production starts. It is a material element, Mahatattva.
It's a material element.
Yeah, there is 24 plus 1, which we discussed, Maharaj. That.
All 25 elements.
Yeah.
Okay, so all 25 elements are the Mahatattva.
24 are Mahatattva, and then the time factor and the Lord's glance over it makes the material thing spiritual.
Okay, so is the Mahatattva coming, is it related to the Pradhan? Or is it related to Prakriti?
Yeah, it is related to Pradhan.
What's the relationship?
It is this part of material nature which is called Pradhana as well as Brahman is impregnated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and delivers varieties of living entities. When Lord glances over these material elements, then the creation takes place and various living entities comes.
But what's the Mahatattva? Just tell me, what is the Mahatattva?
Okay, meaning of Mahatattva.
Yeah, I'm just trying, you have to define it. You haven't mentioned anything about the Mahatattva. You speak about creation, but you're not telling me about Mahatattva. I just want to know, what is this Mahatattva which you're supposed to do?
It is the breeding source of all varieties, Maharaj.
The breeding source.
Can I add, Maharaj?
Yes.
I mean the same thing. Like this Prakriti, when it is agitated by time, then the Lord will, the Lord actually impregnates that Prakriti with that agitated by time. He impregnates that with the jivas, and then that give rise to this whole Mahatattva.
Maharaj, can I add something?
Yes.
My understanding was the unimpregnated is Pradhana and impregnated Pradhana is Mahatattva.
The unpregnated what?
The consciousness.
The unpregnated consciousness is...
No, the material nature, which is unimpregnated by the Lord, is called Pradhana. And once the Lord sights it or injects his, sights it through his eyes,
Yes.
It gets impregnated and then it is called Mahatattva. If my understanding is.
No. So I'm just trying to distinguish now between the Pradhan and the Mahatattva. So the Pradhan is the unmanifested stage, and it's not pregnated, it's not yet pregnated by the Lord, but you say the Mahatattva is pregnated.
Yes.
And Prabhu was saying it's the breeding ground for all varieties of what? Living entities?
Yeah, because the Lord has already, through his eyesight, the subtle...
the glance of the Lord carries the living entities and impregnates the living entities into the material nature.
That is called...
Pradhan has become Prakriti already, so we have seen that in the previous section. Prakriti, it has become, it's a differentiated now. And that is impregnated with the jivas, and then we get Mahatattva.
When you impregnate the jivas into the Prakriti, then it becomes Mahatattva.
Yeah.
Okay. So when the jivas are impregnated into the Prakriti, then it becomes the Mahatattva. Yes?
Nature has only 23rd tattva with influence of the time, that's the 24th. The Pradhana has made with this Pradhana, when glance comes on that one, it becomes 25th and it gets impregnated, then it's converted to the Mahatattva.
When the glance comes onto the Prakriti.
Yeah, Pradhana, then it's Mahatattva.
No, the 25th element is the time too.
24th is time, 25th is glance.
23
is element, then time factor is agitated, and that becomes Pradhana. With Pradhana, when glance comes, with a glance it comes 25th, and it is a three mode of material nature also it comes that one, and same time impregnated gets that one, and this becomes Mahatattva.
Okay. Right. When the glance of the Lord impregnates the different elements of the material nature, then it becomes the Mahatattva. All right? Now, explain consciousness. And what's the presiding deity of consciousness?
Mind.
Who did you say was the
Chitari Prabhu, please continue.
presiding deity of consciousness was?
Vasudev.
Vasudev. And how did you describe consciousness?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Actually, it is defined as the mode of goodness, which is clear, sober state of understanding. The pursuit of Godhead, which is generally called Vasudeva consciousness, becomes manifest in the Mahatattva.
I think you're describing pure consciousness.
Yeah, pure consciousness.
But it's not always pure, is it? We're looking for a general, I think it should be more general explanation of consciousness. And what is the source of consciousness?
Soul.
And where is it found in the body?
In the region of
heart.
Only?
Everywhere. The whole body. So the consciousness it will be to the whole body. Maharaj.
Yeah, consciousness will be throughout the body, right? Consciousness, of course, is the symptom of the soul, and from that consciousness, the whole body is given life, right? And then false ego. Explain false ego. False ego.
Mataji, you can just continue, Mataji, because
Okay. So false ego, actually it's the source of the gross element senses and the mind.
Yes.
It is a cause of that. And then it is presiding deity of that is Sankarshana.
But what is that false ego? What, you have to tell me, you know, what is it, you know, false ego? How do we exhibit it? How do we show false ego?
Because I read from 25. Is there something in 24, Chitari Prabhu?
False ego arises from the pure consciousness itself, Maharaj. But it only thing is that when it is in the contaminated stage, we will have it, the pure consciousness will not be there. Whereas it is said here in the purport of Srila Prabhupada that the misuse of marginal independence, there is a chance of forgetting Krishna. That is and that will be our fall down.
Okay, forgetting Krishna.
Yes. And then it is actually, especially Prabhupada gives a very wonderful analogy also of the sharp edge of the razor, how the spiritual realization should be. Because he gives of a person who is shaving with a very sharp razor, as soon as his attention is diverted from the activity, he immediately cuts his cheek because of the mishandle of the razor. So that's the mishandling of the marginal independence will be the reason for our downfall.
Okay.
And another thing Prabhupada explains also is regarding we must not, when we come to the stage of pure consciousness, one must be also very careful. The inattentiveness and the carelessness may cause our fall down. And as soon as one deviates from Krishna consciousness, he increases in the entanglement of the material reaction.
Okay. And you said Sankarshan is the presiding deity of false ego?
Yes, one.
So, what about Lord Shiva?
False ego is characterized as three things. That is by Kartrutvam, Karanatvam and Karyatvam. That is the doer, instrument and effect. So doer here, the demigods who are the controlling directors of material affairs, they combine with the senses, that is the instrument, Karanatvam, and then the effect is the whole, the material objects, that is the effect, that is the Karyatvam. So also, as per the influence of the modes of nature, that is the three modes, this false ego acts as either serene, active or dull. That is also given. The three forms it takes, and the whole advancement of this material civilization, whatever we are seeing now, people think it is advancement, but actually it is a manifestation of the false ego only. False ego, by that only all material things are produced as objects of enjoyment. Like Narottama Das Thakur, there is a beautiful song Prabhupada is quoting in text 26, that he laments that when one deviates from pure consciousness of Vasudeva or Krishna consciousness, he become entangled in these objects of material enjoyment, these material activities. So we have to give up that this temporary, enjoying this nature. And then in the text 10:27, the false ego that evolves into the mind, and from the mind the thoughts and reflections that give rise to desire. Like the symptoms of the mind are acceptance and rejection. We know that whenever there is a favorable situation for sense gratification, the material mind will accept it, and when there is this one unfavorable, it will reject. So what we have to do is we have to, as long as this material mind is in the material platform, it will do this, hover in this asat platform. But then when a person, when the mind is fixed in Krishna consciousness, it will not hover between acceptance and rejection. It will be fixed. It will on a particular subject matter. Like it will not be no more material nature. It will have.
All right. So can we worship Lord Shiva to get rid of false ego?
Lord Shiva is worshipping Lord Sankarsana. So, in that way we can take shelter of Lord Shiva. Please give mercy of Lord Sankarsana only.
Okay. All right. What about the mind? The presiding deity is who?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Presiding deity for the mind is Aniruddha.
Okay.
Who is in the form of 400 form, the blackish blue color.
Yes. What about?
And by worshipping him, we can free from agitation of acceptance and rejection. This mind is called mana or chitta. I'm sorry, not mana, chitta. And next comes intelligence, that is buddhi.
You tell me more about the mind. What's the function of the mind?
Function of the mind.
Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to explain the mind. What's the mind doing?
I explained that acceptance and determination, that rejection, sankalpa, vikalpa, thoughts and reflections.
Okay.
Thinking, willing.
Yes, desires, right?
Desires, yes, it gives rise to evolve, yeah.
Okay. And what about intelligence then?
Intelligence gives us the power of discrimination.
Yes, right.
Which is right, which is wrong. And in a way, it is called, which is wrong is called viparyasa, and which is right is called nishchaya. And the intelligence is the master of the senses, although mind and senses are, what do you call that? Without the assistance of intelligence, the senses cannot finally act, because which is right, which is wrong are being decided by the intelligence. And Srila Prabhupada says that intelligence can be achieved only through Krishna consciousness.
Okay.
And Srila Prabhupada says that by Krishna consciousness or with the intelligence, we will come to know the things as they are.
Right.
And Srila Prabhupada here even explains the importance of getting a doubt. One has to doubt everything in the beginning. Unless one starts doubting, he will not analyze it. And Srila Prabhupada even says that this analyzing, and then coming to a proper conclusion is the right process of the intelligence.
Yes.
And Srila Prabhupada here, he says that it starts, the doubt should start that whether the living entity is matter or spirit. So from that it should start, and then it should conclude with the right nishchaya. So Prabhupada also says we should doubt everything so that we can analyze it properly, and at the same time we should know that whatever is specified by the authority, that is acharyas or scripture especially, is doubtless, should be taken as doubtless.
Okay, very nice, yes.
And Srila Prabhupada also says that this analysis about mind is very clearly given by Patanjali in his Patanjali Yoga system, and also by Kapila Deva in his Sankhya Yoga, this analysis of Viparyaya and Nishchaya.
Yes, and the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali also talks about the mind, controlling the mind. Oh, all right, okay, let's go on. Group number 3. Who's the spokesman? Yes, Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Maharaj, after understanding this, the evolution of the false ego, mind, and the intelligence, and from text number 31, it speaks about the manifestation of the indriyas. The indriyas, it manifests the false ego in the mode of rajagunas, and it creates the two types of the indriyas. One is the 5 action senses and then 5 knowledge acquiring senses. Whereas the 5 action senses, it depends upon the energy, the vital energy. Whereas the knowledge acquiring senses, it depends upon the intelligence. And 32, from 32 onwards, it describes the manifestation of the first the tanmatras, and then from the tanmatras, all the elements, and then the characteristics of these tanmatras and the elements are explained. Like in 33, the sound, how the sound, the element, tanmatra of the, it's appeared, the sound, the tanmatra of ether, which is the which gives the idea of the object. It gives the idea of the object and indicates the presence, and then by sound we can understand. And then the next one is in 34. It explains about the ether, which is provides the space for the living entities, and then externally and internally, and acts as the base for the prana, senses and the mind. And 35 and 36, it explains about the touch, which is the tanmatra of the air. So the characteristics of the touch is like softness, hardness, cold, heat, and are distinguished attributes. Text number 37 speaks about the air, the element of air, which is moving and mixing, leading sense objects to senses and giving life to this energy. And 38 and 39, it deals with the element of the form, the tanmatra for the fire, which allows the understanding of the dimensions and the quality and the individuality. And in the next verse, the text number 40, it deals about the related element, which is the fire, which is the ability to cook, to digest and to destroy the cold and give rise to the hunger also. And 41 and 42, it deals about the taste, the tanmatra, which is the tanmatra for the water. So in the following verse, in text number 43, it deals about the water, what are the characteristics of the water, which is moistening, making balls, causing the satisfaction, giving life, and relieving from the thirst and softening. 44 and 45 deals about the smell, which is the tanmatra of the air. And then when the earth is dealt in next verse in 46, which is the place for the sustenance of all the beings, all the living entities. And in 47 to 49, it summarizes how from each tanmatra the elements have been created.
Okay, so can you tell us more about the connection between the different elements, the gross elements, the 5 gross elements?
Yeah, it's from the first gross elements. It's again from same like the subtle to the gross. The manifestation, it starts from subtle to the gross.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the ether, how is it, which particular sense is connected to the ether?
The ether, it is the tanmatra is the sound.
So which particular sense organ will be created?
The sound, it's by the ear. We can realize the sound by the ears.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. So from the sound, the ether, and then from the ether, it's the air is being created. That is the connection. From the air, ether, air is created.
And with air, what's the quality which is unique to air?
The air is the tanmatra is the touch. We can feel that we can touch the feel.
Is
the
there
air.
also sound in air?
Yeah, the sound is also present in the air. So each element, when it goes higher and higher, the previous elements are also being present in that one. We can feel all the other previous the tanmatras also.
So which sense organ is created with
the skin? The skin is for the air.
The skin, okay. And then the next element is fire.
Next element is the fire. Then the tanmatra is the form. The element is our eyes. So from the eyes we can visualize the form.
Yes.
And then from the form, the fire. Then the next one is the water. The tanmatra for the water is the taste. And then the related the indriyas is our tongue. So by the tongue we can realize the taste.
Okay.
And from water, the next element comes is the air. And the air, the tanmatra is the smell, and then the related indriya is the nose. By nose, we can realize the smell.
Okay. Yes. Good. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for this group? No? If there are no questions, then we'll go on to group 4.
Thank you, Maharaj. Direction.
Group 4, spokesman.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. So we are given the question, explain the universal coverings. There are 7 layers of the universal coverings. Water, air, fire, sky, ego, Mahatattva and Pradhana. And then the universe is in the shape of an egg. And the Supreme Lord, as a Virat Purusha, situates himself in that golden egg. And this is lying on the water. The golden egg is lying in the water. And he divides, and he divided it into many departments.
What is it? What is this water? The golden egg is lying in the water.
That is the Garbhodaka ocean, Maharaj.
Oh, the Garbhodak, the golden egg. So the Garbhodak ocean is in the egg, is it?
Actually, the golden egg is floating on the Garbhodaka ocean.
The golden egg is floating on the Garbhodak ocean. The Garbhodak ocean is in the bottom half of the universe, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
So, what is the golden egg? What does it represent?
It is each universe, like it is said in this shloka, that etad andam visheshathyam. So the universe is in the shape of an egg, and all the 14 planetary systems are in this universe, and the Virat Rupa is where all the 14 planetary systems are in each part of the Virat Rupa. And
so but I asked you, where is the universal egg? You said it was in the Garbhodak ocean, but the Garbhodak ocean is in the universe. But you're telling... Yeah, I think you've got it wrong. Are you sure it's the Garbhodak ocean? The water, you're speaking about the water. I asked you what the water was. You said it's the Garbhodak ocean. But then you speak about the universal egg floating in the water. So, I just can't understand how the universal egg can be floating in the Garbhodak ocean. Because the Garbhodak ocean is in the universe. That is in the universe. There's the Karana Dakashayi.
Karana ocean.
Karana ocean, yeah, the causal ocean, if you like. The causal ocean. And all the universes are coming out from the body of Mahavishnu, and they're floating on the causal ocean. Right? They're the universal agas, not on the Garbhodak ocean. Garbhodak ocean is in the universe. Right?
Yes, Mother. Thank you, Mother.
So go ahead. Explain more. Explain again.
I'll pass it on to my other devotees who are in my group, Mother.
Okay.
From scripture, there is supreme person of Godhead, Virat Rupa, situated himself in a golden egg, which is lying on the water, which is divided into the many departments. Now, the inside of the golden egg, the Lord, as a Garbhodaksha Vishnu, lying in the bottom of that one, and that half is filled, which is by the weight of that one, and that from navel, that lotus flower comes out, and from that, the one of the petals that Brahma is lying, and there one and another, all of the material elements, and Pradhana is lying, and then it is glanced with the Lord, it has been impregnated with the living entities and three mode of material nature and everything. With it comes slowly from that, creation will start from that side. So this is the, and when creation starts, the Garbhodaksha will take a Virat Rupa, and with that one, each organ which is as a body has a senses to perceive that, and with that there is a presiding deity for representing that organ. So there's a organ, and then the deity presiding on that organ, which is represented that function of that organ and controlling that organ. So this is like that comes the Virat Rupa, like in the 54 shloka. First of all, mouth appeared in that one, and it comes the force of the speech, and the god of fire, Agni Devta, is presiding director of the organ. Then nose appeared, nostrils. From nostril, olfactory sense means the smelling is come, and the vital air, the prana as well will be there. After that, in a 50%, after the olfactory sense, means the smelling sense, because it comes through the air. The wind god of the sense, smelling sense is the presiding daughter and lives on that sense. So then the eyes appear in the universal form. The sense of sight, which comes with the sun god, because eyes can see on when the light is there. In the dark room, eyes cannot see. If light is not there, because person can see only when light goes to the eyes and get reflected. Unless light is not there, how precise your eyes are there? Or a blind person or a person with eyes is no use. Both are same. So light is the main thing through which a person can see. So the sun god is there who made us to see. And so this is a presiding light or deity for the vision. Then we appeared him the pair of ear. Ear is the having an auditory sense, hearing sense. Dikpala are the presiding deity who lives all of the direction also. After that, next comes the slokas in that sense, universal of the Lord. The Virat Pursha manifested in his skin, and thereupon the hair. His skin, hair, mustache, beard appeared, then all are herbs and drops. His medicines are manifested, and then his genitals are appeared. And all these are the semen in that one. There is a faculty of procreation. The presiding and the god who presides over the water is appear of them. The Varuna, Devta, is the presiding deity for the semen and the faculty of procreation. This is the that one. Next appear is the anus, the defecation, then there is the god of death, which is feared throughout as the universe, has appeared here. And then in 58, there is a two hand of universal form. Radhesham Prabhu, just please take over.
So from Shloka 58, Maharaj, it says that two hands are manifested, and the presiding deity mentioned here is Indra. So four hands are manifested for power of grasping and dropping the things. Then the next shloka, it is mentioned that the same sloka it is mentioned that legs are manifested for the process of movement, and the presiding deities here mentioned is Vishnu. Then the veins, blood veins, and veins are manifested to process the blood, and the deities mentioned here is rivers and deities, presiding deities over the veins. So then, next sloka it is mentioned that abdomen appeared, and then it gives the feeling of the hunger and thirst. So ocean, the samudra is the presiding deity. Then see sloka number 60 manifested, and then from appeared, then intelligence, then false ego, and then consciousness. So mind, the deities, it is Chand. Then for false ego, it is Lord Shiva, and for the consciousness, Lord Vasudeva. So this is up to Maharaj from 59 to.
So what's the practical lesson? What's the practical?
Sorry, Maharaj?
What's the practical lesson? Right? We said you have to describe the Virata Rup, drawing practical lessons from it.
Yes. Practical lesson.
Last of that, after finishing first question.
Because there are slokas up to 72, we have 71 we have to cover. So the last part they will explain the
okay.
Practical. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. The Devatas, they wanted to wake up the Virata Purusha, and they are entering to the parts of, like a god of fire is entering to Virata Purusha mouth, but he did not wake up. Then sun god entering into the eyes, but Virat Purusha is not waking up. But in after that, they are trying, but only when Vasudeva entered the heart along with the Chitta, then only Virata Rupa rose up from the water. Then 71 it is mentioned, the pranas, mind, intelligence cannot wake up the sleeping individual soul without the intervention of super soul. This is up to 71, Maharaj.
Where is the Virata Rup situated?
He is situated in the Garbhodaka Ocean, Maharaj.
Where?
Garbhodaka Ocean.
Is there such a thing as the Virata Rup? Is it actually manifested, or is it just some imagination?
It is imaginary form.
So, we would describe the Virata Rup like that, eh? Whether it's just some imaginary form.
Yes,
Maharaj, in an explanation, the Virat Rupa is that basically when nature has been created or material creation has been done, that time all the material elements and the deities of presiding deities for that organ and function of the material nature has been established, and they have been given a shape of a human body with the human body as Sakara Rupa that time, and that imagined image has been covered whole of the material or whole of the golden age, whole of the Brahman, whole of the universe, and that each function of that creation has been controlled by a one presiding, like a sense of hearing or sense of vision. In all of the living entity who have a sense of vision will be controlled by the sun god. So suppose eyes will be, everybody has different eyes. Suppose human eyes are different than eyes of one fly or one kite, but they all are gross sense may be different, but the main vision, the main perception of sense will be same, and that has been controlled by the presiding deity. Now, to represent them in our form, is that Virat Rupa has been told, and that is the imaginary fact in the whole of the universe. And this imaginary foil also ultimately is controlled by the Vasudeva, which is living in the heart of that one, and he has a mouth also. So with that it's been controlled. That is the thing described. And finally, it has been told in this after the last sloka that the one becomes joyful by discharging devotional service in the joyful attitude, and one can understand the signs of God or Krishna conscious. Otherwise, it's not possible. The analytic study of element of material nature and concentration of the mind upon the super soul or as a sum and substance of the Sankhya philosophical system. So another thing Bhajan can explain, the life in our body, super soul and soul both are there. Super soul is detached from completely from the body and everything. So that's the but soul, because it gets attached to the body or the material thing, so it becomes contaminated. So when the soul starts doing devotional service, it start getting detached from the material nature or material element, and she becomes start getting purified and goes to the getting ready or being eligible to serve the Lord or go to the back to Godhead. So that is the reason, and that's only and how it has happened, how the devotional service can be done and it's been turned to the super soul, that has been called substance of the sum and substance of the Sankhya philosophical system that has been described here. Ultimately, it is the devotional service unto the super absolute truth. That is the final touch of this chapter.
Okay, very good. Yes, I agree. All right, anybody has any other questions? No? Okay, we'll go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes?
I think still we take questions from you don't understand, Mataji. Okay. The practical lessons, what you can draw from Virat Rupa Maharaj, I just did not get it.
Practical lessons? That we need the soul, we need the super soul there before anything can happen. The soul and the super soul. All of these senses, organs and so on are there, but without the presence of the soul and the super soul, they're useless. All right.
Prabhu, like that is explained in the last 10 shlokas, that Virat Rupa was not getting aroused unless the Vasudeva comes into the heart. So it means unless the super soul, the spiritual personality of Godhead, is will be in the center of our heart, our material body or material function will not be get separated. Similarly, it is said that body, like we have a soul and super soul. The super soul is completely detached. Unless soul get detached from the material contamination and get attached to the soul by doing the devotional service, we will not able to get detached and we will not able to go back to it, back to Godhead. So that is the main, and for that one is called that the concentration of the mind upon the super soul are the sum and substance of the Sankhya philosophical system. This is the final message from this chapter.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. We'll go ahead. All right. This is the final verse of the chapter. Therefore, through devotion, detachment and advancement in spiritual knowledge acquired through concentrated devotional service, one should contemplate that super soul as present in this very body, although simultaneously apart from it. Right? So this is the idea, Sankhya, contemplation of the super soul, which we'll be hearing about in chapter 28, when we talk about Astanga Yoga. But mentioned here in the Sankhya Yoga also, devotion, detachment, and advancement in spiritual knowledge. Well, they're all together, right? Bhakti brings Gyan and Vairagya, acquired through concentrated devotional service, right? So one should contemplate that super soul as present in this very body. So by devotional service, we contemplate the Supersoul. In this very body, although simultaneously apart from it, of course. The Supersoul may be in the body, but it's apart at the same time, it's different from it. So that is the concluding verse, the yogi contemplating the Supersoul. And here's Prabhupada's quote from the purport. The analytical study of the elements of material nature and the concentration of the mind upon the Supersoul are the sum and substance of the Sankhya philosophical system. The perfection of the Sankhya Yoga culminates in devotional service unto the Absolute Truth. You see, we're explaining about Sankhya philosophy according to Devahuti Putra Kapila, not the atheist Kapila. There's atheistic Sankhya and the Vaishnava philosophy of Sankhya. We're studying the Vaishnava presentation of Sankhya philosophy. And the perfection of that Sankhya is devotional service unto the Supreme Truth, the Supreme Lord. So it's described here, the analytical study of the elements, which we did this evening. We looked at the different elements of material nature, and the concentration of the mind upon the Supersoul. That will be explained later, 28. That is the real sum and substance of the Sankhya philosophy. Okay, are there any questions?
No hands raised, Maharaj. Girirani Mataji has raised her hand.
Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, could you please clarify about the Saguna Nirguna? Like, is it related with any tangibility?
Is it related to what?
Tangible. Is it Saguna and Nirguna? Is it measurable?
Is it measurable? Well, how do we certainly, if you are able to identify the modes of nature, you know where the modes of nature are taking part and where you're not in the modes of nature. You can understand somebody being transcendental to the modes of nature and somebody being influenced by the modes of nature. And we'll see that also in chapter 29 when we talk about devotional service in the modes. That devotional service can be in the modes, so certainly Brahman can also be influenced by the modes. We should be able to identify the modes of nature. We know what, like passion and ignorance, violent mood to do harm to others, and passion, a lot of material desires and ambition. You want success, you want to be recognized. And the mode of goodness, we want to get rid of our sinful reactions. We're looking to purify ourselves from our bad karma. That's the mode of goodness. So these kind of things. And so Nirguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman. Nirguna Brahman, it's pure goodness. It's completely dedicated for the Lord, the service of the Lord. So the spiritual world is Nirguna Brahman, the whole spiritual world. And we said the deity, when we invite the Lord to appear in the material elements, then the deity also becomes Nirguna Brahman.
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, so we can understand like Nirguna means it has a form but has a spiritual form. Saguna, it has a form but a material form. Is it correct, Maharaj?
Well, we're talking about elements of material nature. They all have forms, yes. The elements of material nature certainly are forms.
Thank you.
There will be forms in the spiritual world. Everything will have forms. You know, there's in the spiritual world, we hear about the homes of the Lord, Chintamani, Prakara Sadmasu Kalpa Briksha, like that. His home is made of Chintamani. And all the trees are desire trees. You know, everything has form. Even though it's near Guna Brahman, still it will have form. And it will appear like material form, but it can be spiritual. We cannot distinguish, just like you see a transcendental, you may see a very elevated devotee, you may not recognize that he's a transcendentalist. We see the example of Pundarik Vijayanidhi. When Pundarik Vijayanidhi came to Mayapur, Pundarik Vijayanidhi would disguise himself to look like a materialist, just to fool the people, just to let people think he was, but actually he was a very, very elevated devotee. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to say, Pundarik, my father. When the Lord was in his Radha Bhava, he would refer to Pundarik as father, because he was actually Radharani's father, Maharaj Vrishabhanu in Krishna Lila. But he would look like a materialist, just to fool the minds of people who didn't look to actually, they would only look at the externals. So sometimes people, we look at the external, we think this is material. We have to see the spiritual nature within. You have to look deeper. It's not enough to just look at the external symptoms. You have to look within. Right?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you, Maharaj. So, Maharaj, it's like so subtle, so we need to find the Nirguna, means we need to have some spiritual chakshu, something like that, Maharaj?
We need to what?
Spiritual eye, like spiritual vision.
Well, what we would say, Shastra Chakshush, you have to see through the eyes of scripture. We don't just see with our material eyes, but you have to see through the eyes of scripture, see with the eye of knowledge.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you so much, Maharaj.
There is hands up from Rajeshwari Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Just wanted to know about this analytical study of the elements of this material nature. How is it like helping us to to become Krishna conscious?
Well, it's Krishna's energy. One thing is, you can see how everything is systematically created by the Lord. You know, if you read the Christian Bible, they simply say God created the world in 7 days. You're not told anything about it. But here in Srimad Bhagavatam, we're given an elaborate description of the different elements, one after another, along with the different sense organs. And you can see how everything relates. It's very systematic. It's a very clear and scientific description of how the different elements come about, particularly in terms of the gross elements and their different qualities, and you can see the progression. So this helps a lot for us to understand that there is design there among the elements, among the ordinary people don't know this. Nobody knew. Without reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we wouldn't know this. It's very interesting information. It shows the design within the universe. It shows the intelligence of the Creator, and it shows how these different elements actually came into existence, which is the beginning of the creation. Right? The creation of Lord Vishnu, the initial creation. People think Brahma's the creator. Well, that's secondary creation. The initial creation is done by Lord Vishnu, and we need to know about it. We should know about it. It should be clear. Because, well, if you understand, then you can explain it to others. You can show them the beauty behind the material creation. You know, people are appreciating beauty. Oh, isn't it so nice? Everything looks so beautiful. They don't know anything about who did it, who designed it, how did it come about. So we don't want to be so superficial and just attracted to externals. We want to know about everything clearly.
Yes, Maharaj. Like especially today, I could appreciate how the advancement of civilization is due to the false ego. We actually think that it is advancement, but actually the false ego is progressing. The people associated with, the false ego associated with the three modes is actually making the variety of the so-called, the material variety of material enjoyment is created by the false ego. So we can explain through this that. This variety, the whole thing that you are seeing is covered by the false ego. That's why it's shown as the enjoyment, not actually as the Lord's creation.
No. Yes.
False ego is covering us.
Yes, right. False ego is covering it.
Thank you.
One important point which we didn't bring up, which we should have discussed, was about the creation of mind and intelligence, right? How does the mind come about? Where is it created from? Yes, who was doing the mind? Explain the mind. Do you remember how was the mind created? Where is it created from? False ego in what mode?
Mode of goodness.
The mode of goodness. And where is intelligence coming from?
Rajas.
Huh?
Rajas, passion.
Passion. Yes, right. Now sometimes that puzzles people. They think, intelligence should be higher than the mind. So you should note that the mind is a creation from false ego in the mode of goodness, and intelligence is false ego in the mode of passion. Right? Why? One reason given, we tried to find out some reason to explain this. We came up with a reference from Ayurvedas, and they said that the intelligence is often planning, whereas the mind just simply acts and desires to do things. So the planning is more in the mode of passion. Planning, I'm going to save this money, I'm going to do that, I'm going to go there, I'm going to buy this. That kind of planning, that's more passion. But the mind's desire just to act, that's more in the mode of that's the mode of goodness, without thinking too much. So that's how Ayurvedic described it. Okay?
There's one more question from Gopijana Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu?
Maharaj, how can, I have two questions. One is this intelligence. If mind is the mode of goodness, then it is superior to the mode of passion. But it says that intelligence is superior to the mind. How can we understand this?
Well, I tried to explain to you, I told you, that the intelligence is more planning, but the mind just simply desires. So that desire is the mode of goodness, but the planning for our sense gratification, that's the mode of passion. So we say higher than the mind is intelligence, because intelligence is meant to discriminate. Right? Because intelligence is discriminating over the desires. You know, the mind desires, I want some money, I'm going to rob the bank. Intelligence said, just a minute, don't do that, you know. It's going to get you in big trouble. So intelligence...
So in that sense it is called superior, but not in the sense of mode of goodness is inferior to mode of passion, not in that sense.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj. And Maharaj, another one, this Brahma Jyoti. Brahma Jyoti is also can be called as Nirguna Brahman.
Yes.
And my question was, if it is a Nirguna Brahman, then how these the jnanis who has a desire to merge with the Lord, that means they are under the mode of goodness to possess something. So they can be merging into the Brahma Jyoti. How can I understand this, or am I lacking something?
How can you understand how the Jnanis merge into the Brahma Jyoti?
Yeah, because they have a desire. That means they have a guna. They have some contamination. So, I mean, maybe I'm not able to...
Well, if they do have the desire, like that, they won't stay for long in the Brahma Jyoti. They'll come back again. That's why it's said that people who achieve that impersonal liberation, you know, Aurora Krishrena Parampatam Tada Patanti Adro Nadreta Yasma Dangraya. They fall back to the material world. So they may enter into that Brahma Jyoti, but then they will come back after some time because they have desire.
Okay.
But some are Brahmagyanis.
Yeah, those who don't have the desire, they just are simply satisfied.
Yeah, then they can.
They will stay there long.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So I think we'll finish here tonight. So we'll see you on Monday night. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakti Vrinda ki
Jai.